Our primary mission here at Alternate Media is to bridge the gap between Judaism and Christianity, as it's existed for far too long. Yeshua, as we know, never intended to start a new religion. He was a religious Jew.
I think that's a certain point in every believer's life where we think, isn't there more?
There has definitely been a need within the church. It's something that a lot of Christians are searching for. A lot of Christians know that there is something missing in their faith. What indeed is intended to fill that is Judaic roots of the faith.
The New Testament is very clear about bridging the gap between Jew and Gentile, and we're just returning that mission back to the modern day. Hello, and welcome back. Boy, is it good to be back. Holy cow, long time no see, everybody. What's up? Welcome to the Alternate Media Podcast, or Killing the Church, or whatever we're calling it nowadays. You know what we do here. We talk about topics that are killing the church or things that need to be killed in the church. And, of course, as always, I have my compatriot here to help me run the whole show. So I'm going to go ahead and, without further ado, bring him aboard. What's happening, bro? How you doing? Long time no see on the show. What's going on?
It has been a while. Chag Samich, everybody who is partaking in Sukkot this year.
That's right. Chag Sameach or Chag Samich, whatever. You're stupid. So happy Sukkot. Yeah, to all of our viewers, to those of you who are partaking, you know, and even if you're not partaking, happy holiday anyway. Just take it.
Right. And happy October.
And as you can see, we have taken quite a bit of a break. Mostly my fault because I have moved all the way West Coast, and that's why I've got my my West Coast hat over here. I spent one day in Colorado, and this is what happened to me. So
sounds about right.
Yeah, so I got the hat on, but if I need to switch, you know, if you're in the comments and you're like, I hate the cowboy hat, and you go back to the flat cap, let me know. I got one here handy. So complain enough, and maybe I'll switch it out. We'll see. So,
right, one day in Colorado, it was better that it was a cowboy hat than, like, you know, an all hemp hoodie or something.
Yeah, no, well, because who here seen Yellowstone? If you've seen Yellowstone, put in the comments. You know, that's in Montana, but like from Montana, you know, all the way down to Texas, that's like true yeehaw country where people actually wear these hats because it's functional. Yeah, when we got to Colorado, I had to get one because I was burning up wearing a flat cap and it just wasn't making sense. And I was like, yeah, I get it now. I get why everyone wears these because it keeps the sun off my face and it's really light. It breathes. I was like, man, this is obviously now I get it. So you could never wear this in the South. It's too hot. So, as per the tradition, I know it's been a while, but who's with you in spirits tonight?
I am doing something that we typically do on Sukkot and partaking of some mead. So Viking Blood is the brand or the variety. The brand is Danskmjord. And this is a Nordic honey wine with hibiscus and hops added. So it's one of my favorites, and I don't drink it that often. I usually only do it for Sukkot.
Yeah, actually, you know what? Yeah, I just now noticed that, but we always drink that during Sukkot.
Yes.
I don't know why I feel like I've had that enough, but okay, yeah. Very well. I am trying this Teeling Irish whiskey pot still. This is a brandy chestnut cask age. 57.6% alcohol by volume, so it's a little bit of a kick in the teeth.
Yeah, this Viking's Blood, for a honey wine, it is 19%, so you do have to treat it more like a brandy.
Yeah, this take it real slow on this stuff, and it's also really, I've had some of it already. It's really, really smoky. You know me, I don't really like smoky whiskeys all that much. It's really not that like bad, but yeah, it'll kick you in the teeth though, right enough at 57%. So cool. So let me check make sure everything is running well on our production end here. I think everything's good to go. Cool. All right. Announcements. We have some announcements. Quickly.
We do. Yes. We'll be obviously, you know, we're gonna be jumping back into the swing of things. So our 2-month hiatus is coming to an end. We'll be able to be a little bit more productive. We definitely part of this was time taken off for the holidays because we just went through 2 of them, and now we're in the middle of a third one.
Right.
So my debate review of the debate between Rabbi Eduardo and David Costello on the oral Torah will be resuming probably sometime after the Sukkot holiday.
Yeah, and for me, now that I'm finally, we crossed the country. I can tell you about it now that we've already done it to the public. I didn't want to announce this publicly, but we crossed the country in a Toyota Tacoma, and we camped every stop. So instead of trying to cross the country in 2 or 3 days, which a lot of people do, and they take the southern route through Texas, we decided to take the northern route, and we decided to do it in 8 days instead of 3. So we only drove about 6 hours a day. We'd stop, pop up a tent, camp out of the back of a Toyota Tacoma. And wherever we stopped. And so we stopped in places like St. Louis. We were in Nashville. We were in Salina, Kansas. We went to Denver, Colorado, and we traveled. But now, now that those 2 weeks of travel are finally over, we're here all the way on the West Coast. We're in a destination. We're kind of settled in a little bit. I hope to get back into rhythm here as well and start on the Galatians commentary, the counterpoint to Rob Solberg's Galatians class. Can't wait to finally get started on that and actually have that out, because that's been a long time coming, and now I can actually sit down and really prepare for that, since we're settled in for now. So that's a couple of things that are just coming down the pipeline. Also, we haven't done a book giveaway. We usually do a monthly book giveaway. We haven't done that in the last couple of months. Don't you fret. We will still do the giveaway, and we will backfill the 2 months of giveaway time lost. So we will draw 3 names at the end of this month, and we will give away 3 books to make up for the 2 previous months. So don't worry. And that, again, as if you're a regular viewer, you already know that's only available. The giveaway is for Patreon supporters or website supporters. As soon as you sign up, you're automatically entered for the random drawing, and you could possibly win a book at the end of every month. And then whatever book we give away, usually 2 months later, we do a book club where I review said book. And so if you got that book for free, you can read it. And then usually in the next month, we will do the review. So we go through it together. Yeah. So we're getting back in the swing of things. It's been a minute. We took a little bit of a hiatus. We had a lot of things going on all at once. We kind of stopped everything all at once, and now we're getting right back into the swing of things.
Absolutely. So the topic tonight, I had that up earlier.
It doesn't like it.
That's okay. 2 now. That's 2.
There we go.
There we go. Better.
Yeah. Back to normal.
Oh, man. So, yeah, the topic tonight, and this is one that came up in discussion a bit in my private life, and I think also in yours here recently. And so we were like, all right, well, this is a simple enough topic to tackle without too much preparation. So that's kind of how we landed on this, is obviously we're rounding to the holiday season, when obviously the debate over what is and isn't pagan rages in a huge way. And so there are certain themes that there are a lot of, I would say, assumptions about. And what people tend to do, especially in the Torah observant movement, when it comes to the biblical holidays, is rather than be engaged with the area that they live in, rather than pulling from the seasonal blessings that God gives in the place they already live, they tend to decorate their homes to try and mimic the Middle East for this time of year. And not that that's wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. But I do think in part we tend to miss out on the beauty of the natural world that Hashem has put us in, where we are, right, in the locales that we are in. The seasons exist all over the world, not just the Middle East.
Right.
So this is one of those areas where, especially now in October, especially to take part in the season can sometimes be confused with and look like maybe it's taking part in a pagan holiday. And so I figured it might be a good idea to actually make some differentiation here.
Yeah, I think we've basically kind of done an episode like this in the past, and it's one of those where at what point is it just basically everything is pagan, right?
Right.
And especially amongst our Hebrew roots counterparts, it tends to feel like it's always that way. Everything is pagan. It doesn't matter what it is or what you do. It's like it's pagan because it is. It just is, and it gets really tiresome.
Pagans have a monopoly on all of the seasons,
and all of the everything else that's
right,
like not explicitly.
There's nothing in the natural world that is a thematic backdrop for the season that Hashem owns. Right, it's all pagans own all of it.
Yeah, right down to the shirt I'm wearing. A collared button-down shirt, like polo style, is pagan because it's not in the Bible or whatever. Sometimes we run into situations where it feels like that's the conversation we're having. Like, okay. But we get this question a lot. So we figured now's a good time. It's the 1st of October to clarify a few things on what about spooky season is or isn't, if spooky season is pagan. So yeah.
Right. And I think a good place to start there is probably addressing the title, right? Spooky season.
Yeah.
Many people make the automatic assumption that this is spooky season because it's inherently related to Halloween. That's simply not true. A lot of the themes that are tied to the holiday predate the holiday, right? In fact, the holiday is what it is because the season more broadly carries that ambiance,
the atmosphere.
Right. It is inherently tied to the season, not a particular day. And numerous cultures across time and history have established their own holidays to hallmark these particular themes. But nobody has a monopoly on the season. Spooky season in particular, we have to understand the historicity of it. First of all, it is viewed as the death of nature, right? The natural world around us is dying, right? Mm-hmm. And there's one of the first associations with death that this season has, is that we're watching the natural world around us die. But that's not a negative thing. That's actually kind of a beautiful thing, which is why fall foliage is as beautiful as it is. One of the awesome things about that is that the greenery that you see throughout the spring and summer is not actually the color of any of the leaves that you're seeing. That is the chlorophyll that is pigmenting the leaf against its nature. So what happens to the leaves that causes the beautiful array of colors that we see is that the chlorophyll in the plant stops being produced, right? So the leaf's natural color actually shows. So what you're seeing is not the leaves changing color, but rather their natural colors being revealed. And I think that that's something beautiful about this time of year also, that should probably be highlighted, is that while nature is in process of dying, it's revealing its true colors. It's revealing its natural colors. And I think that there's probably a great lesson we could all derive from that. So in that way, it's also revealing a beautiful lesson to us. And I think that for some people is maybe subconsciously unsettling, right? The idea that death brings about one's true colors, but it is an inherent reality. But it's also, and you'll be able to speak to this too, it's also acknowledged in numerous cultures all over the world, that this time of year is when the veil between the world of the living and the world of the dead is at its thinnest. And this is why some of the connotations of people having more supernatural experiences, of people, encountering the other side, that's where a lot of those legends come from, is just the acknowledgement that there is a more spiritually lush, again, ambiance to this season.
And it 100%, as you were saying, it's natural. It just is. Like the trees don't start changing color and the leaves start falling off them because of pagan reasons. This is just the way the natural world is. And things begin to, at the very least, take on an illusion of death. In fact, I was actually having a conversation. There was a tree just outside of the yard, and my father was like, "Yeah, that tree's dead." I was like, "Is it like dead, or is it like dead because it's fall? But if I were to like break it in half, it's still green on the inside. Like how dead are we talking?" He goes, "Oh no, it's like totally dead." And I went and I broke a branch off and was like, "Oh yeah, totally dead." But like
firewood dead.
But the fact is, I had to raise the question because everything around said tree looks exactly like that. So it's like, well, everything looks dead just like it does. So, I kind of had to confirm. So that veil is thinnest.
Right. And that also has its own, that's naturally spooky, right? We as human beings are naturally off-put by the prospect of death in general, or any encounter with death, be it our own or somebody else's. It's off-putting, hence spooky season.
Yeah, and so that's like really the crux of the whole thing, right? So to answer the question up front, basically, is spooky season pagan? No.
Let me explain. Season is inherent.
Spooky season is. It just is. Right around this time of season, things are spookier because everything is dying. You can see the spiders more readily in the trees. The natural color of the earth turns from its lush green to its more orange, brown, more dead looking, more barren looking. The nights get colder. The nights get shorter. So darkness descends on the earth faster. So you have less daylight to work with. So, on a normal time, you'd be getting home at 5:30 from work, and it's starting to get dark already. That's kind of creepy. In fact, one of the things about daylight savings time, there's this whole crime statistic stuff about, solidifying the daylight savings time and not shifting it at all, because crimes tend to happen after sundown, shortly thereafter. And they don't usually tend to happen in early morning hours just before dawn. So one of the arguments was, if we, leave everything the way it is and we don't do the shift, right, where the sun's going down at 4:30, people are generally safer because they're going home from work at 5 and it's already dark. So they're in more danger just because it's after dark. Whereas if it were still sunlight out when they're getting home from work, they're generally more safer. So just in crime statistics alone, right, by the very fact that, things happen after dark, it's spookier because darkness descends faster. So
right.
Yeah, spooky season just is.
And it's interesting that you bring that up, right? Because darkness in and of itself is something that people tend to think is spooky. Now, it's not that way for everybody. Some people rather like it. Yeah. I happen to be one of those people myself. I prefer the time of year where it gets dark earlier, because I'm one of those people who comes alive at nighttime. But outside of that, right, it is just inherently off-putting. It's that whole, it's not being alone in the dark that you're afraid of. It's not being alone in the dark that you're afraid of.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, so now where the crossover, where the confusion happens is where we blur the line between spooky season, which is right now is spooky season, and pagan related holidays that happen in spooky season.
Right.
The most popular being Halloween.
Right.
Obviously. which the title of this video is done on purpose to make people think we're talking about Halloween. Yeah, in a way we kind of are, but really not really, actually.
Right.
A little bit.
What we're going to be doing here primarily tonight is kind of deciphering, okay, where is the line drawn between something that is purely seasonal and something that is inherently related to the holiday, right? And this is a question that a lot of people have. Even we've had this question regarding Christmas, and I think the general idea that we get is like, look, decorating with spruce, decorating with pine is a far cry from decorating a Christmas tree. Right.
Right. Like Christmas tree ornaments on a tree hung up in the house is different from, I like the pine, especially in the winter. I love the campfire and the pine smell in the house. So I put pine candles everywhere. And I just try to, permeate the house with that pine scent because I love like fir, spruce, and pine just as a scent. But you won't see a Christmas tree ornament anywhere in my house. You'll just see, like a lot of green and a lot of pine, more or less.
Yeah. So we're going to play a game tonight.
we are going to play a game. The game, let me pull up the banner, is it pagan? That's the game. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a picture up on the screen, and you in the comments are going to decide if it's pagan or not. And we're going to go by a majority vote. And then once we get like some comments seeing which way we think it is, then we'll answer the question for you, and we'll move on to the next picture. Hopefully we'll go through like maybe 5 or 6 different pictures and clear up a few misconceptions about some of these. Your I am going to warn you ahead of time. Some of these are trick questions. So, keep an eye out, but have your Google and your Wikipedia ready. Yeah. So let me get presentation up here real quick. Share window, and we'll start with this one. Yeah, is it pagan? Here we go. Is this the best one? That's the best one. Okay, yeah. All right, so the question is this pagan?
Definitely looks spooky.
Definitely spooky seasonally. A lot of darkness.
Right. And we got we do got a seasonal fruit.
Yep. So put it in the comments, and we're just going to keep talking until we see something in the comments on at least somebody guessing what we think. Is this pagan or is this not pagan? So far, we got one no.
Yeah.
Interesting. And so let's see. What can we, without giving too much away, what can we talk about while we wait for more answers? We can clarify things right now, but then we're giving away.
Okay, we just got a bunch all at once. All right.
There it is.
Everybody seems to be of the same mind here.
No. Okay. God made pumpkins. Yep. Fair enough.
This is a seasonal fruit.
Yeah.
I get that there is an inherent tying to Halloween that people give this fruit, but this is a seasonal fruit. It's got nothing to do with Halloween other than the fact that Halloween takes place during the season in which this fruit is harvested, right? When this is what is plenteous. So pumpkins are not related to Halloween because Halloween. Pumpkins are related to Halloween because Halloween takes place in the fall. Right.
It's the inverse relationship. It's not the other way around. And that's an important point we want to bring up here real quickly is, let's say, hypothetically, Brad, let's say you walk into my house out here, West Coast, you're visiting, it's spooky season, and you see pumpkins all over the house because my wife just decided to go out and get a bunch of pumpkins and just place them randomly all over the house. And every once in a while, you'll see her pick one up, gut it, bake the seeds, make a pie or a bread or something. But there's pumpkins everywhere. Am I participating in paganry because I have pumpkins decorating the house in this particular season?
Not at all. You're taking part in the more broad autumn season, right?
I'm just decorating according to the
seasonal thing, not a holiday thing.
This is a seasonal decoration. So, yeah. So, so it seems actually we got a smart audience. Yeah, not pagan. Let's see. I got another couple of pictures here. You know what? I got one. This one may be a little bit more difficult. So let's see here. Let's do this. Is this pagan?
I like this one. Yeah, this will be a good one, because this is one where actually the context is what matters the most, because there's nuance within the context, and we can discuss this a lot more in depth. But yeah, audience, go ahead, give your answers, everybody in the chat. Like, is this pagan?
We got one no so far. Never seen that before. Going with no. Interesting. So for those of you maybe just listening, and we actually have one Crumbles, I'd say yes personally. For those of you listening, it is appears to be either a crow or a raven. I actually can't see its tail feathers all that clearly, so I can't tell if it's a crow or a raven. Sitting upon a bleached skull, a human skull, totally clean. And the backdrop is like writing. Looks a lot like the Constitution style, cursive handwriting. Yeah, so there's symbolism of death in two ways. We have the raven or the crow, which is the arbiter of death. We have death itself, right? A human skull and some writing. So it's a little like creepy ambience.
There's and this is for people who have an education and know what you just referenced, right? That the crow or the raven would be the harbinger of death. That is a specifically pagan belief, right? That's now that the association with that, we can go into some more etymology on, and the fact that crows, we even read in the Bible and other more ancient documents that the crows would feast on the flesh of the dead and stuff like that. But the crows were known in pagan culture as the harbinger of death, specifically Norse pagan culture. That was the raven was a big part of that. So it could be pagan, but this is where some of the nuance comes in. Seamus, tell us what this is.
This is Edgar Allan Poe's Nevermore poem. Is it? I'm not even actually sure if that's the official title of the poem. I always call it Nevermore.
That's the Raven.
The Raven. Saith the Raven, Nevermore. And so it is a raven. But technically I can't tell because I can't see the tail feathers. Ravens have a sharp tail feather. Crows have a flat one. Yes. For those of you who, but that's what just looking at it, and it's sitting on a skull. So this is a very famous, from Edgar Allan Poe's very, very famous poem. Everyone knows it. And so this is actually a pretty common piece of imagery associated with Edgar Allan Poe because of that poem. You'll see a lot of depictions of a raven sitting on a skull just like this for that very purpose. So, so that still raises the question though, Brad, is this pagan?
Right.
You know what it is, but is it pagan?
I would say that, and again, this is where the context is going to matter. And I believe we have 3 different pictures regarding this topic, because of the inherent nuance of this topic. Now, again, Edgar Allan Poe and this image in particular do have strong ties to Halloween more broadly and generically speaking. You'll see this image as a decoration come out a lot more during the Halloween season. And that's not anything that's Edgar Allan Poe's fault, so much as that he was himself a spooky writer. He was the Stephen King of his own time. So naturally, on the day that itself tends to celebrate spookiness, he would be enveloped into that. The same way that Pennywise is enveloped into that. And, there's nothing inherently Halloween about Pennywise, for those of you who know Stephen King novels. Right. But nonetheless, because they are scary, right? And so this is something, this is what I'll say. Anybody from any culture at any given time could come up with a random ghost story, and in American culture, that would become inherently related to Halloween.
Yeah.
Just on the basis that it's spooky.
I would say that's a fair point. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go with no, it's not pagan. This is a piece of poem. It's a piece of American literature. And it's actually just really a piece of art depicting said literature. Now, is it using things that have close ties to paganry? Sure, but that does not mean it's automatically pagan. Great example of this. You're drinking Viking's blood, which is a mead.
Right.
Mead is so closely associated with literal Norse pagans.
Yes.
Does that mean pagans own mead? No, it's mead.
Right.
So similar sort of concept, I would say. So for me, nah.
And on that, if you have one of the other pictures, maybe, we don't even have to bring one of the other pictures up.
I have some others.
Okay, I was going to say this is the area also where, again, because of the spooky nature of Edgar Allan Poe, it's associated with Halloween. But crows really are okay. Is this pagan?
Yeah, this is one of the other ones we have.
Right. The crow and the raven are actually much more broadly related to the fall season. Again, because of their inherent relation to scarecrows, which scarecrows also have an association with Halloween, again, because Halloween takes place in the season, not because they are a Halloween thing.
Yeah, it's taking place during the harvest season.
Right. Scarecrows are an agricultural tool, right? Because crows would be a problem for the crop. So you would have a scarecrow to scare the crows so that they didn't eat the crop. So both scarecrows and crows/ravens have an inherent seasonal tie to the harvest season, not inherent to Halloween in particular.
Right. There are a lot of parallels, but it's something to be careful about. So we're going to breeze through this particular question here. Is this pagan? Because we did already kind of cover the raven. So the difference between the previous one and this one is we have two ravens present. Now, in pagan, especially Norse pagan religion, you have Odin's ravens, two of them, and they're usually paired up. You see them. What's the name? Munin and Hugin, I believe, is the two names of the ravens. So that you see them in pairs. Now you're starting to dabble into this is possibly pagan symbolism because you have two ravens. And then this one's a little bit more obvious because you actually have the Viking triangle, like the Trinity knot for the Vikings right there. You actually probably know what this is called. I don't remember what it's called.
No.
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 But this is a little bit more clear, right? So if you have a raven, like maybe because I think ravens are cool. They're like my favorite bird ever. So if I have just a raven like up kind of as a piece of decoration, that's different than having a pair of ravens maybe facing each other or away from each other with something else, something that's a little bit more like, all right, now we're definitely playing with some pagan symbolism here. And this is a great example of a line that can be drawn. And then just to make another clarification here real quick, because we definitely had a few more images like this. This one here, is it pagan?
Nah, it's an artistic depiction of a raven. This
is just a raven. It's art. It's decorative. I would frame this and put this in the house. Like, this looks great.
Right.
And it's by itself. So there's nothing in here that's very obviously tied to pagan symbolism. This is art. So it's definitely good to exercise a little bit of presence of mind, I guess, really kind of looking into what it is that you're looking at and determining if that's really like, yeah, there's a lot of ravens in paganry, but that doesn't make ravens automatically pagan. So it's, just be careful.
Right.
Based on your previous topic that you brought up, actually, let me do this here. I gotta bring it up. Is that pagan?
it certainly looks spooky.
It's certainly spooky. That is for certain. Let me see here. Let me pull it. Let me see if I can. Yep, I can increase the size here a little bit.
Cool. Yeah. Live chat. What do you think? This pagan?
Is this pagan? I definitely want to hear.
Right. And we can definitely go into the spooky aspect too. Like why is it spooky? Why did scarecrows become something that we thought of as being spooky? And some people some people may think that it is because of its relation to Halloween, that, like scarecrows were kind of benign prior to this, and then we put them into Halloween and now they became a spooky thing. That's actually not true. The reason that they are spooky has every bit of a psychological phenomenon that we can discuss here in a bit. So, yes, again, you guys are right. Like, no, this is not pagan. It's a scarecrow, right?
So this one's interesting. So I chose this one particularly because we had a bunch of pictures of scarecrows that we could have put up. But this is the only one that has the eyes and the mouth lit up.
Okay, I see.
Right?
Okay.
So now you can't tell from the picture. I think it's far too small, and I actually have the full size image here, and I still can't tell. But a small clarification should be made here. If this is a jack-o'-lantern head, then yes, it's pagan. Yes. But from what I can see, it seems a little too round to me, and it just seems like the eyes and the mouth are kind of just lit up. It still looks like a general scarecrow head. But if it's just a normal scarecrow, then no, it's not pagan. So this was a trick question. So it depends. Because the eyes are lit up, I'm kind of a little bit more keen on saying, well, maybe because,
That actually goes back to the first picture that we showed of a pumpkin also, and the question that you framed, right? Okay, so, we've got pumpkins all over the house, and, we cut them open, scoop out the seeds, bake the seeds, make a pumpkin pie, stuff like that. Is that pagan? Well, no. But when you carve a face into it...
yeah, now we're playing with some stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So... Now, I suppose there, right, the nuance would be regarding carving pumpkins generally. Like, if you're not carving the stereotypical jack-o'-lantern face, and maybe you're carving more of an artistic display into it, right, is pumpkin carving generally during this season pagan?
That's actually a decent question. Like, so I'll pull
there's beautiful pumpkin art out there.
Yeah, no, you bring up a decent point. So in fact, I'm going to pull up another image here, and we'll do that. Obviously, I think we all know the answer to this one, but I want to frame the question differently. Is pumpkin carving pagan? Now, obviously, this is a jack-o'-lantern. I think we've established that. Pagan. But I want to play with the question a little bit. Pumpkin carving in general. What do we think? Comment section, do your thing.
Very quickly, to address again what I was saying while they're answering as to whether or not they think pumpkin carving generally is pagan. The reason scarecrows are spooky, and I say are, not were, also not became, but they just are, is a phenomenon called the uncanny valley.
Yep.
Right. And it's the craziest thing to look into. I would encourage all of you just to, maybe take part in the spookiness of the season and look up the uncanny valley. It's wild. Basically, what it is we tend to be very off-put by things that look kind of human, but not quite human. Right. Mm-hmm. So this is the same reason why AI robots look very off-putting to us. It's very unsettling. Or why dolls, like people who are creeped out by dolls, right? That's the same. It's the exact same thing. It's that it looks human and almost alive, but we can tell that it's not. And something about the fact that it's not is very unsettling for us. And scarecrows, I would say, might represent a much earlier phenomenon of the uncanny valley. And obviously not in the broad daylight. But if you were out in the field at night and all you could see was the silhouette of a scarecrow in the distance, that's spooky if you didn't know it was there.
Right. The next one is definitely going to be a trick question. So I got a couple of comments here. But to, I guess, answer the question here, and this brings up a decent question. So Joshua Foote, actually, he says, yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. People decorate a tree and it's pagan. If people decorate a fruit, I honestly don't know. So that is a fair point, right? So at what point do we cross the line into, well, we're decorating a pumpkin, which pumpkin carving faces, jack-o'-lanterns particularly, are absolutely, like, now we are in pagan territory. So where's the line? At what point do we is carving a pumpkin in general, even for art, slipping into that line? Or is it, artful pumpkin carving is always safe as long as you don't have a face or a depiction of, like, where's the line? What do we think?
Right. I don't think it's necessarily comparable to decorating a tree, because there's only so many ways you can decorate a tree, and no matter how you slice it, you're decorating a tree. It's not specific decorations that are problematic, and I think that would be more equivocal, right? Whereas we're kind of singling out a very specific carving. And if we were to compare that to decorating a tree, it would be like, all right, well, decorating it with candles in particular is problematic, or decorating it with tinsel, or the silver globes or golden globes, right? Those in particular are problematic. But then decorating it with anything else, if it's more of an artistic display and there's methodology to it rather than just the random throwing of decorations on it, that would be a more equivocal example. But I don't necessarily see the crossover when it is it's a very particular carving that we're singling out, because there are actually reasons behind why a face was carved into it.
Yeah, that's so that's what we're talking about when we say, like, the jack-o'-lantern thing particularly, because that's what it is. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I would add that, especially if we want to take this to a much more strict historical context, it wasn't even pumpkins that were originally had faces carved into them as a jack-o'-lantern. That would actually, it would have been more so a gourd. Like, which a pumpkin can be considered a type of gourd, but those are not the kind of turnips and gourds and stuff that you would get natural to Europe. Pumpkins are kind of more an American thing.
Yeah, personally, I would say the face is problematic. Now, because I'll put it this way, pagan or not, we are essentially, like, at worst, it's pagan, but at best, you're recreating an image of a face of a person, right? You are literally, in the 10 Commandments, you are forbidden from carving or engraving an image of things that are on earth or in heaven. And this is quite literally that. So once you put a face on the pumpkin, you are carving, engraving. And that's the Hebrew word is essentially saying that, to carve, to engrave, to chisel. Now we're in that realm, and you're actually doing that. So if it's a face of a person, or just a face in general, you make it in the likeness of a face, I think it's when you cross the line. But if you're going to do something like, you make a flower, right? And you put a candle in it, like, at first it doesn't look like anything, and you put light behind the pumpkin, and it's a 3-dimensional flower. Like, I think that's just art. That's cool.
And that's my point in bringing up the etymology of the gourd, right? Is that it's not that you're carving a face in a pumpkin, it's that you are carving a face. Right? Be it a pumpkin, a gourd, or what have you, it's that you are carving a jack-o'-lantern face, which is inherently tied to this holiday more broadly, and its more ancient counterpart.
Yeah, it's more, it's now it's Halloween specific, right? So that's when we back away, and
that's not a seasonal thing.
So, I mean, in my personal opinion, basically, I would say, I think artistically presenting something on a pumpkin should be more or less fine, but could be considered problematic to others because
Right.
you are closely associating with the holiday, even though it's not directly. It's close enough that it could be problematic, but I think it's safe. Just you need to be pretty careful, and it might even be worth just not venturing into that at all, so as to not appear, like to avoid the appearance of evil. And so, like I says, in our house, we just have pumpkins just there. There's no art. They're not painted. They're not carved. No, they're just there because that's seasonal, and they're covered with fall leaves and stuff. But nothing is carved or painted, or there's nothing artistic about the pumpkin itself. It's just there. That is the decoration.
Let me also address Joshua Foote. I'm in agreement with you here on this. My point in comparing those two and trying to single out specific decorations is that would be a more equivalent argument to the pumpkin carving subject. Which my point being is that we don't make those distinctions for a Christmas tree because it's not really specific decorations that are tied to the Christmas tree. It is just decorating a tree in general that is a Christmas phenomenon.
So the next, is it pagan? Let's see here. We have this. Is it pagan?
This was another good one.
Yeah, I'm personally I'm actually pretty happy about this one.
Yep. What you guys think?
Put it in the comments. Is it pagan? What do we got?
Yeah.
So I guess while we wait for some comments, do you have any seasonal decorations up in your house at the moment, sir?
We do have a pumpkin, and it is just a pumpkin, but it's got like Happy Fall or something like that, written on it. Not carved into it, but written on it.
My darling wife went out and bought a green pumpkin, and it sits in our sukkah. And we found a bunch of dead oak branches with the leaves still attached, but they're orange, so it's
nice.
Early fall leaves. And part of the roof of our sukkah is lined with these fall leaves. And so our sukkah is very fall decorated out here.
And that's that. You know what? I'll tell you what. That is part of the reason that I think this was a good topic to bring up, right? Is because, look, the seasons exist whether or not we want them to, because Hashem made them to exist. And Hashem puts his own holidays within these seasons because there's no other time of year that he could put them in. We have the 4 seasons. They are what they are. So he clearly intends for us to in part take part in the season, right? And take part in the season in the locale that you're in. You don't have to try and make your sukkah to look like it's in the Middle East. A lot of, believe it or not, a lot of the Ashkenazi traditions are what they are because the Jews were making traditions based around the locale that they lived in.
Yeah, it's part of the culture of just being a German Jew, right? There's certain things that are German. It's not a Jewish tradition to eat gefilte fish. It's an Ashkenazi tradition to eat gefilte fish because it's from Germany. It's a very German thing that the Jewish people just kind of adopted as part of being in the German area.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And like, so that's the thing is there are certain things that the Torah does mandate that you decorate your sukkah with. Right. Mm-hmm. But it's not pagan of you to put pumpkins in your sukkah as a seasonal decoration for somebody who lives in America where pumpkins are the seasonal fruit.
Right. So we have a couple of no's, and this is actually the best answer here. Just a cat, no. A witch is familiar, yes. That's actually the correct answer. See that, and this was a trick question. We got you guys with this one. So those of you who said no, we hate to break it to you, but you were technically wrong here because of one detail. If you look at the eyes on the cat, they're green. And a black cat with green eyes as decoration is a witch's familiar.
Yep. That is something you can pretty consistently find that even if you just Google it. right? The black cat that is most associated with Halloween, which the black cat association with Halloween is specifically because of its association as a witch's familiar. That is why we associate black cats with Halloween, not because black cats are inherently spooky. There's really nothing inherently spooky about a black cat. Black cats are, I would say, actually one of the more common colors of cats that you can find. It's not exactly a rarity.
No, and the thing about it too is we actually talked about this a little beforehand. So this is just a point of clarity here. I'm going to bring up this image. Is this pagan? Well, we just kind of talked about it. Green-eyed cats, yes, but yellow-eyed black cats that's natural. That's how black cats should look. Some of you may know, me and my wife, we had a black cat for about 3 years. Unfortunately, he passed away recently, but a black cat in general is just a cat, right? Just a cat. No. Which is familiar? Yes. So the question came up, can you decorate with black cats in this season? To which I would like to offer the solution here is to be very careful about how you do that in this season, because the black cat is associated with the season, sure. But once you have the green eyes as decoration, it's, now we're talking which is familiar. But stuff like this is a plushy black cat with yellow eyes. It's cute. You could have this in the house all year round. This is not pagan. This is clearly just a piece of cute decor of a black cat.
Right.
Yeah. So we kind of got you guys with that one. Not sorry, but
it's one of those where you'd have to have been paying much closer attention to the detail. Really, everybody answered correctly if all we were talking about was just black cats in general.
Right. Yeah. Let's see what else we got here. I think that's about all of the. Well, you know what? We got this one.
I'm gonna say there's two more that I can think of.
I have one more. The other one I think is we kind of covered it, but I have this one here. So let's bring up that one. Is it pagan?
So this is a good one because we'll let the chat answer.
Yeah. Don't even give it away. Just
you did bring up. Yeah, we did briefly address the other. So another decoration that people tend to think as an association with Halloween in particular is spider webs, right? And you will see that in a lot of homes that are decorated for Halloween are spider webs. But spider webs are not actually unique to Halloween. Now, are spiders spooky? Yes. I think anybody who has, ever seen a child or anybody with arachnophobia understands that spiders are naturally spooky. The reason that spider webs are actually a seasonal decoration has everything to do with the fact that it's cooler and that it gets darker earlier, right? So the spiders begin to build their webs when it gets dark. So because it gets darker earlier during this season, they begin building their web earlier. So that by the time you wake up in the morning and you walk out your door to go to work, you see a fully formed spider web. Spider webs that are fully formed become much more ubiquitous during this time of year because the spider has had a much longer period of time to build its web. So spider webs are actually a seasonal decoration, not a Halloween decoration.
Yeah, I would tend to agree that the spiders tend to use. We said it sort of towards the beginning of the episode. Spiders are a little bit more visible in the season, and so I would argue that it's more of a seasonal thing. Now, of course, if you have spider webs decorating your Halloween decorations, right? There's crossover there, but and weirdly enough, I don't know anyone who just seasonally decorates with spider webs. It feels like that's more like you're only really doing that if you're celebrating Halloween. But on
don't pull the ones down that the spider builds.
Yeah, just leave them up. But like on principle, like technically speaking, a spider web on its own is like, even if it's decoration, it's not strictly pagan. It's just a seasonal thing, very closely associated with Halloween, sure. But I would say on its own, it would be like at best problematic, right? As we kind of established, there's some things where it's like, yeah, it's maybe problematic, but not explicitly pagan. So
Right.
now we got a couple of answers here. some of y'all are like reading too far into this. That cross is pagan, spicy. And yeah, the cross makes it pagan, but the message is not ? Nailed it.
Nailed it. Right. So tombstones themselves are not inherently pagan. Neither are cemeteries. Right.
Mhm.
Which is another thing that we see very thematically tied with the Halloween holiday. Now, again, tombstones and cemeteries are also not a seasonal thing necessarily. Right. It's not inherent to the fall season. However, again, we have established that the fall season is one where the process of death is put at the forefront of everybody's attention. So an association with death and therefore with tombstones and cemeteries is only natural. So is it seasonal? Yes and no.
It's really as we have a comment here, I don't think anyone would seasonally decorate with a tombstone either. Yeah,
Right.
That's essentially where we were going to go with that. Was technically speaking, this image alone is not minus the cross is not a pagan.
The message is biblical.
Yeah, the message is in fact biblical. So, and just having a tombstone marking a gravesite is not a pagan thing in and of itself. But yeah, to seasonally decorate your yard, right, with this kind of thing, it's going to be so closely tied to the Halloween theme that we're in the area of problematic. But by itself, technically speaking, it's not. So this is, again, we had a bunch of these that were basically trick questions.
Now, I will add a caveat here, right? Because everybody understands the prospect of the message being the dead will rise, right? The context in which the message is being conveyed is what's important, because I think that most people understand as a Halloween decoration, it has connotations to like a zombie apocalypse. And I would say that if it ever mentioned anything to the nature of like the dead consuming the living, yes, that would be pagan, because that comes from the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Yep. And then last one, just for funsies. Is it pagan?
All of it. All of it.
Except for the cat, funny enough, because it's the cat has yellow eyes. At least I think it does.
The full moon there, right? Full moon's not pagan.
Yep. But we got some carved pumpkins, a witch's hat, a cat.
So
black.
here's a fun fact about that, right? Is that the full moon is more of a seasonal thing rather than a Halloween thing. Now, we typically see depictions of Halloween with a full moon, which is interesting and ironic because that's extremely rare. Matter of fact, like the last full moon that occurred on Halloween, it happened like about 5 years ago or something like that. I don't remember the exact year, but it did happen more recently. We will never see that happen again in our lifetime. That's how rare it is. But the full moon during the harvest season has, I mean, obviously every month has a full moon, but the full moons during the harvest season were specifically relevant. And I say full moons because there were two of them. And what they are both called would be dependent on when the equinox actually is in that cycle. But the full moon generally in September is the harvest moon, right? Mm-hmm. So that would signal the harvest. So the harvest would begin, and then the next month, the full moon in October would be called the hunter's moon. And the hunter's moon being because the harvest is already done. We've already established what animals we're going to now slaughter because we can't afford to feed them through the winter, right? We know what we can survive off of. We know what we can feed our animals off of. We know the animals that we're going to slaughter so that we can eat them. And so now the time of year begins where you really start to rely on hunting more than anything else. And that would have been the situation in especially medieval Europe. So these two moons are very, very relevant to the season. Mm-hmm. But actually not at all in any way tied to Halloween, because a full moon on Halloween is extraordinarily rare.
And I would even argue that a full moon, especially in this season, or really any biblical holiday, is normal because every holiday is on a full moon.
Right.
Every biblical holiday minus Rosh Hashanah is on a full moon. Passover is on a full moon, the 14th of the month. Sukkot, the 14th of the month, on a full moon. So, yeah, minus the new year, which obviously is going to happen on a new moon. A full moon being associated with Sukkot, with particularly, is normal, perfectly fine, biblical, in fact.
Absolutely.
So, kind of a trick question, that one too. But I think it's time for us to do the meme of the week. So I have the meme right here ready to go. So let me go ahead and pull her up. So congratulations to Random Chris 83.
This was a good one.
This is a classic.
Yeah, because how true is it, man? I would wager to say, and I may be coming down hard on the Torah movement, right? I get it. We're part of the Torah observant movement.
Yeah.
We are a ministry within the Torah observant movement. But man, one of the single biggest problems with the Torah observant movement is that people discover Torah and then instantly think that they're being called to be teachers of a community because they discovered Torah. It's like there's no concept of being a student of Torah first for any amount of time.
And what bothers me the most is there's also no concept of submitting yourself to a greater authority, right? To attach yourself to a rabbi, to really be under the wing of somebody who's done this for years, and figure it out with them first before you go and try to be that person for somebody else immediately. And it is like a disease. It is rampant in the Hebrew Roots movement that as soon as they discuss, like it's less than a year and they're already trying to go out and be teachers and be the community elder, to be the guy to go to because, you figured out that the Sabbath is still relevant, less than a year ago. And yeah, more than most Christians, but it's the Dunham-Kruger effect.
Yeah. This is I would say the leading cause of, because there's a problem in the Torah observant movement of not being able to sustain a community. Now there's a lot of reasons for that, but this is definitely one of the big ones. Like, I get it. It took a fair amount of courage and wisdom and knowledge in the scriptures to discover the validity of Torah and then lead your family solo out of the Christian church on this path. We get it. You were the most scripturally literate guy from the church that you came out of. But when you come into another Torah study that's full of other people, you're no longer the smartest guy in the room. You are one of several men who were the smartest guy at the church that they came from, right? It seems that that's the fact that gets lost on everybody, and nobody has any consideration for the fact that, some of us have been studying this for quite a while.
Yeah, you and I alone, between the two of us, we have over 30 years of experience.
Right.
And I have, by myself, less than 15, about 13 years. And that's on top of 4 years of formal education at a university in this topic. And you have well over 15, 16, 17, almost 20 years worth of experience in this, as well as, bits and pieces of formal education throughout those years, through many different sources. And so, and even then, like when we came together and decided to do alternate media, we were both like, I don't know, man, is 30 years between us enough? Like, are we really ready to step into this position?
We did have a long discussion about whether or not, discipleship was something we were at a point where we should even be considering. But coincidentally, I think what we kind of settled on was, we've both been studying for, again, at least 30 years between us, and well over 10 individually for both of us. And both of us at a point now where we were approaching 30, which is the point at which Yeshua began his own ministry. And so both of those together was like, all right, well, it might be time to consider discipleship.
Yeah. So, and we did exactly that. We basically both waited until we turned 30, and kind of went from there. And then on top of that, just like to kind of put some stuff into perspective, me and Brad have, we've been through probably 4 communities before we started alternate media. Like we basically done this 4 times and saw what works, what doesn't work, what are things that are common, why do these things fail. And so by the time we started alternate media, we were like, okay, I think we have an idea of like kind of what to expect, because, we've been there for a couple of times to watch it fail. And then you and I, we, even before we started alternate media, we still ran like a sort of experiment, like a little tiny trial where we led our own just small Bible study just to see if it would work, and it did. It turned out great. We have some members on our staff here at alternate media that are a direct result of that. And so we were like, okay, I think, we put it through a little trial. We did our little thing. We kind of, did just a little group, and then everything put together. You and I, we sat down, we had long discussions. We talked extensively about this, and we were like, dude, are we sure? Do we really want to do this? Like, I don't know. And but it took a lot of careful consideration. And unfortunately, many of the Hebrew roots teachers, after just less than 2 years, maybe 5 years, jump right into it. And they immediately go for the community. They immediately go for being the elder, the leader, and they just don't have that careful consideration behind it, as well as that, many, many times of experience to kind of back it. And you and I, it took a lot for us to do this, because it was like, this is scary. Putting yourselves out like this is really scary. So we were like, we don't really want to do this. Like,
well, I'm glad you said that. That's something that James Lindsay brings up, and I don't want to go on too long about that, because I could go on forever about some of the stuff that James D has said. But he essentially brings up the 3 biggest differences in school of thought on who should be in charge, right? Which is the difference between what he would say is, like the school of Athens, right? Your Greek philosophers. Their thought, then what he refers to as Jerusalem, right? The religious mode of thought, and then the socialist mode of thought. And he does equate all 3 of those as being their own separate, mostly religious movements of thought. Whereas your Greek philosopher, to the question, who should be in charge, is they say no one, which is true. Right? If we're all equally human, then none of us are really qualified to be in charge of one another. But when that's the case, you only get chaos.
Right.
So the religious sect, their answer is, well, no one really. Right? Which is the reluctance of saying, I get it. Yeah, nobody should be in charge, but if nobody is in charge, we will have problems. So the reluctance of somebody to take on the role of leadership, because they think themselves unqualified for that role, is the more ideal situation. Then you have the socialist model, where the ideology is the question, who should be in charge? And they go, we should. That is very telling. It's a Gnostic thing.
Yeah, very. It's very individualistic. It's very like, yeah, well, of course I should be in charge of, a little overconfident. But yeah, no one really. And that's, yeah. And even when we came down to writing our business model, we were like, okay, how do we want to do this? Do we want to set up a tribunal where all 3 of us are kind of, in equal power, so no one is truly in charge? We all kind of have to check with each other for, yeah. And so again, a lot of reluctance and a lot of care, thoughtful consideration went into this. Hopefully you guys enjoy it. So far, it seems like you guys like it. So
right. Seems like it's working.
Yeah. And hopefully, like you said at the beginning of the announcements, hopefully we will start cranking stuff out on a regular basis now. So now that we're kind of settled in, we're all here. So yeah, I think we're about 10 minutes over time. I think we're good to start closing things out and do our closing announcements, and then go into the after part.
Absolutely.
So, but long story short, is it pagan? It depends. Most likely, probably not.
Depends. It don't be afraid to take part in the season more broadly, right? The nature as it exists is Hashem's creation, right? And he intends for you to take joy in it, right? And to utilize it and to use it for celebration. Don't be afraid of that. Again, it's fine if you want to decorate every holiday as though you exist in the Middle East, but you don't exist in the Middle East, and so maybe you're not really just enjoying where God has put you in your life quite as much as you could.
Yeah, and there's something to be said too. You could even argue, are you trying a little too hard to be Middle Eastern when you're not? Like, there's a sense in which you might even be worshiping a concept rather than just going with the flow of nature around you. And I think that's a lot more natural than trying to force something that isn't natural. And so, yeah. But if you guys have any questions, stuff like this, feel free to leave a comment or even email us directly. All the links are down below in the description. And we are going to move into the after parties portion where if you're a supporter and you're in the Discord link is in the description below. You get to hang out with us. The after parties, let me go ahead and put this thing up here. So if you support us through the Patreon or the website or anywhere, membership starts at just $1 a month. No matter what level you give at, you have access to the after parties where me and Brad, we hang out in the Discord and we just chill out for an hour. We hang out with you guys. You can ask us questions. You can hang out. We can just have some whiskey. We can talk about nothing. We can sit in awkward and total complete silence if you want to. It's whatever you guys want to do. You can throw the lion's den right at us and ask us all sorts of theological questions and really put the grill.
We love that.
We love that. Actually, that's when it's fun, but it's whatever you guys want to do. You guys, that's free, you guys. And again, membership starts at just $1 a month and you immediately have access to that. And of course you can obviously vote in future topics for future videos. You have exclusive access to certain exclusive content that we have published on the Patreon or the website, certain articles and videos that are not available to the public. You have total access to those things. Memberships just starting at $1. So if you feel so led to support the ministry here, we are a 501c3. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. So all of your donations are in fact tax deductible. So if you feel so led, links are in the description below, and we greatly appreciate all of your support. But the easiest way and the most free way that you can support us, simply like the video. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button. Believe in the subscribe button.
Yep. Ring that bell, everybody.
And ring the bell.
That being said, again, Chag Sameach, Chag Samich. Enjoy the holiday, everybody. Enjoy the holiday and the season that it comes in. We hope to see you next time, or if not, we'll see you later in the after parties. That being said, l'chaim.